Hey guys, this is Light and welcome to my early season tier list video, and if this is your first time watching these, I'll explain how I do them real quick. So every season I have a base tier list video and following tier list videos will be updates to it. So in the base tier list video, which is this video, I'll cover mostly every unit, and in update videos I'll only cover what changes. So yeah, for the tiers we have Tier 0, which includes units that basically have 100% presence in the meta. They're almost always first picked. Mine is Emil Poly. I'll talk about her later. And then we have the S plus tier units who are very common, and they are picked alongside the tier 0 units. And the meta is extremely top heavy right now, which means the units that are strong are really strong. So it'll be very common to see a game of all tier 0 and S plus tier units pretty much. So yeah, and then we have S tier, which are decently common encounter picks. And then we have the niche tier, which are units that might be good anywhere from like 1% to 20% of your games, which isn't much, but they're still worth mentioning because it's good to be, prepared for a lot of situations. That's how you get your win rate up and whatnot. And then we have the cleave tier because it's hard for me to rank cleave units because usually a lot of cleave units are only as good as like the openers that they're attached to. For example, Blue Hwayoung, she's only good if C Lilius is good realistically. So yeah, difficult to put on a tier list. So yeah, anyway, let's get into it. So for the tier 0 units, of course, we have Arunka, Scales, and Yoha. These are the highest priority units in the game. They are definitely the highest priority. They're in every game. They're really strong. Like Arunka will always be good, or at least that's what it seems like, because it is definitely a challenge to pick AoE units depending on like the depending on like pre-bans and whatnot. And like Arunka is really annoying to deal with. Like she's the tankiest unit in the game, or she can be the tankiest damage dealer in the game too. And like she's mainly strong because like the drafts that like protect like super carries, like Arunka plus Emil Celine is a huge combo, and like Arunka also protects like cleave drafts and stuff. So yeah, she's super impressive because like the units she protects are really strong, and she herself is also really strong. So yeah, I don't see her ever really going away from the meta unless there are better AoE units, but even with things like Belly and Yoha, she's still really good. So yeah, easy tier 0. And we have Lady of the Scales. Just like Arunka, she's a, she's a she's a very defensive unit, but also she's a very offensive unit because she's good in both like anti-cleave and cleave. So she's really annoying, but also she has major synergy with a lot of the strong units in the meta right now. For example, Scales plus Ruel is super cookie cutter and strong. Like you pick Scales, you put Ruel in front, and then you just like invincible yourself, and it's just really toxic to deal with. And also she's really, she's a huge threat to cleave because she's a huge like reverse cleaving threat with the way her passive works and whatnot. And yeah, she's just really annoying overall. And there's not really many things that actually deal with her. Like Hecate in her current state is like a complete failure. So yeah, Scales easy tier 0, good in everything, but although a little harder to play if you're slow, because she does require you to be a bit aggressive, or else you kind of just die. But yeah, but when played well, completely overwhelming. And then we have the new ML5 Yuha. This unit just makes this unit just makes anything go psycho mode. Like 200% speed and HP is literally good on like every unit. But but in particular, it's really good on like Ross and Billion because like their HP scaling. Like 3F Billion does 1,000,000,000 damage, Ross does 1,000,000,000 damage. And the weird thing about Billion to me is that I feel like HP scalers were never balanced around having their health pool doubled. So they just do like criminal amounts of damage when they're buffed by Billion. Sorry, when they're buffed by Yoha, which is pretty crazy. But yeah, and then but like on top of like, you know, like super buffing a unit to just murder people, her cleansing passive is really strong. Like passive cleanses like that, they're just really useful. She's one of the only counters to like Fire Sacred right now, who is a huge menace. So yeah, she's really good. And like she's not really reliant on any other units either. Cause like you know, she doesn't rely on like Bellion she doesn't rely on having Bellion or Ross on your team because anything that's buffed by Yoha will be a menace. Like she has synergy with like a lot of units, like Ross, Bellion, like even like Renak, like Luna, Rossetti, Setsuka. Making your Payra turbo fast is also a thing. Like she's just really good. So yeah, easy tier 0. And then we have Emil Poly. I usually don't put an opener like this in tier 0, but I'll change that now. So Emil Poly is the premier opener right now because the Saria artifact, it pushes her backline by up to 24%. And Emil Poly is a unit that was balanced around not having a, you know, a push, because her main counters rely on, you know, reversing her by like stealing the turn or something. But it's very hard to deal with a unit that pushes you back by 30%, makes her team faster, makes you slower, but also pushes her backline by 24%. It's like, imagine, like in the past, like, debuffers are her biggest counter, right? Emo Luna is one of her biggest counters, but now Emo Poly can just, like, CR push her Janua to murder the Luna. Like, it's no one's business. And disclaimer, though, this unit scales with how fast you are. If you're slow like me, you're only 300 speed, she won't be that good for you. But, you know, it's still worth noting because she's like the premier whale unit of the season. If you're super fast, if you're over 310 speed, you will destroy people. Like, you can pre-ban Ilanev, and you will just absolutely run people down and destroy them if you're faster than them. And with the upcoming MODN, she's gonna be even more broken. Because, you know, she'll have additional strips, pushbacks, seals. Like, she's gonna be crazy. Actually, she's already crazy. Like, if you, like, you know, you'll see a lot of people, like, running around with, like, their, like, 310 Emil Polys. Like, she's really strong right now. She's the premier opener. It's just that, to play this aggressive style, you have to be fast to, you know, have like a high ranking, and it's always been like that. Last season it was Amici Lilius, and now it's Emil Poly. But this time around, like she's overwhelmingly strong right now with her new artifact. So yeah, I'll put her tier 0 because I think she'll be the best aggressive, like, cleave opener kind of unit that everyone's gonna play. So yeah, easy tier 0. And then we have the S+ tier, Emil Celine. Emil Celine, you know how it is. Really fast, tons of damage, has a cleanse and revive. Has super synergy with Arunka and Scales because they keep her alive, especially Arunka because, like, her biggest counter is Arunka, And then Arunka protects her, so yeah, super synergy with the really strong units. And yeah, she's just really good for like any kind of player. She was the best turn 2 unit last season because you just pick Celine and protect her with revivers, so yeah. Solid unit. And then of course we have Freeren. And Freeren with Belly and pre-ban is an absolute menace. Always will be. As long as you're slower than her, she will be an absolute menace. Yeah, she's just solid. There's not enough options to deal with her at the moment. And like she does way too much damage as well. Like super strong. And then we have a resurgence of A Ross because they removed the pen frenzy that made him useless 25% of the time. And also he has a new buddy, Emil Poly, that absolutely destroys people. So Ross is way better, but also with the trending Illinev pre-ban, Ross is super good, especially with Emil Poly, because he just does so much damage that it's hard to keep up. So yeah, very strong. And of course it's really nice that he doesn't get debuffed and he has an extra life. And then we have Bellion. She is one of the only viable damage dealers currently. Because like she's 30k HP, she does tons of damage with 3F, she has super synergy with Yuha. She's AoE, so she can kind of deal with Arunka. She can kind of deal with skills, because like, you know, she pumps so much damage into her front line. And a lot of things are reliant on souls right now. However, Belly and pre-ban is very common. So yeah, she's really strong. However, if you don't have 3F, she's not that good. And then we have White Tenebria. This unit is insane. Like she can't be cleansed. Like what more do I have to say? Like when she's available, you can't really, you know, pick like a lot of like a whole bunch of tanks because you're just gonna get debuffed to death. And she doesn't really have much counterplay besides cleaving her. So yeah, she's really broken. Like the debuffs are really strong, and she also makes her team do tons of damage with her rupture debuff. But she's just absolutely insane against people who are slower than you. And then Ruel is insane for, you know, both sides. Like she's a reviver that's very hard to interrupt. Well, you really can't because like she just revives herself and CR pushes, right? But you can't seal her. You can't really debuff her because she'll just respawn and take the turn. And like she's really good in, you know, slow and aggressive play. Like she'll anchor your team, you know, stop them from dying, bring them back, yada yada. She's really annoying. And like counters like Bryceria aren't really effective because, you know, a lot of people put like Idol's Cheer on their Ruel and just cheese out your Bryceria and whatnot. You know, super strong, especially with scales or Arunka. Like she can tank for scales and then she can, like, you know, fix Arunka. So yeah, super strong unit for both sides. And then we have Maid Chloe. Maid Chloe, her passive is really useful for like blocking, you know, a lot of damage sources. The revive is useful, however she's a bit more vulnerable than Ruel because she doesn't have a self-revive mechanic. Like she's much easier to kill than Ruel. But she's still very solid. Then we have Renak. I've knocked Renak down a tier just because I feel like she's a bit easier to deal with. But she's still really strong. She's a big problem for, you know, people who want to play aggressive because she's the fastest unit in the game, and if you don't gear gap her, it's gonna be pretty difficult. But like as like a slower player, she's less of a problem, or rather there are more problems to worry about. Like, you know, You have Fallen Cecilia, you have Setsuka to deal with her, kind of. She's a bit more manageable. But yeah, stuff like Renak and Arunka are still really strong though. Like Renak, Ruel, like all that. They're still really strong, but they're not strong because of Renak. They're strong because of like the other units, right? Like Renak is just a good partner for them. Then we have Illinev. I did bump Illinev up quite a bit because there's so much damage in the game again, and a lot of the damage is pen damage. Like Illinev is gonna become essential again. Actually, she honestly is already. Like everyone is playing Ross. Everyone wants to play like the Poly shenanigans, or they already are and they're pre-banning her. But yeah, Illinev is just really important because pen units are, you know, on the rise again. So yeah. Then you have Emil Luna. Emil Luna is always a solid unit. So long as they're passive reliant units, like she can just completely turn off a team, and it's not very effective to pick cleansers right now. So like that makes Luna even stronger. But she's not as crazy impressive as she used to be, but she's still really good. Then we have Harsetti. I also bumped up Harsetti because the way the game is right now, you are forced to pick Harsetti, or else you will die. If you are a slower player and you're fighting someone aggressive who doesn't pre-ban Harsetti, for example, let's say they picked like two very aggressive units in their 1-2. Let's say they picked like, you know, like Yuha and Ross or something. You're gonna want to pick Harsetti because they're gonna cringe you with like opener on 3 plus a damage dealer on 4 if you don't pick Harsetti. And then a lot of people will be, you know, really. I mean, and some people like they don't care. They'll pick opener on 3 even as first pick, and then you're forced to play Harsetti into them or die. Because there are so many options for their like 4-5 that they're just gonna run you down if you don't pick Harsetti. I'll put Harsetti here because in recent times I feel like I'm forced to pick Harsetti or else I'm gonna die miserably to speed units, which is a shame because I hate playing Harsetti. I don't like her RNG turn order, but I feel like she is the essential to pick because there's nothing else to pick unless you want to get ran down because you don't have speed. So yeah, Harsetti, we'll put her S+ because she's definitely on the rise right now. Then we have Setsuka. Setsuka is not as strong as she used to be, especially because like Sigrid counters her pretty hard, but she's still really annoying. She has very high presence in like slower games, and like against like aggressive players, she's usually the only thing you can pick to deal with them. But yeah, Setsuka is still majorly annoying. Like you think like you get 15% in once and you lose. Well, imagine getting 15%ed and then evaded and then all that, right? Like she just adds layers and layers of RNG that that are very helpful for winning a game. And then yeah, Sigrid is very toxic. 30% pushback with a double strip, that's basically Emil Poly almost, and she gives your team speed buff. But on top of that, she will on average fear you for 2 turns. She will fear at least 2 of your units, right? And it could be crucial, it could be nothing. But the issue is her cycling is S3, S2, S3, S2. And then yeah, her cycling is insane. Like she can afford to like brick her for like maybe you can get lucky on her first S3 and you don't get completely feared, but then like what are you gonna do about her second S3 is usually the issue with her right now. Like she forces you to be like aggressive enough to kill her, but also you kind of have to not be debuffed to death as well. which is really hard. I think Yuha might be the only like decent counter to her, but then like people will still pick her into Yuha, and then you're like, oh, I need to pick another counter, which makes it really difficult. But yeah, definitely top tier debuffer right now. Very hard to deal with, and like her S2 is very anti-Setsuka. It's just really annoying. So yeah, yeah, her synergy with Goblin of Oath is absolutely bonkers. So yeah, very strong unit. And then we have Fallen Cecilia. Fallen Cecilia is just really good because of her passive. And yeah, that's about it. She's an Aureus Knight with a really useful passive. That's about it. Then we have Janua. Janua is only up here because Emil Poly is really strong and Ilinav pre-ban is trending. Like Janua Poly, like it'll completely run people down now if you're like, you know, if you're unaware. And also, Janua can use like the Master of Nightmare artifact to have a 40% chance of completely destroying you, which is not very cool, but you know, that's a thing now too. Janua is pretty good again. And then, you know, Ahmed C. Lilius, they're like a tier below Emil Poly. Like they're older units. They're still effective, but if you want to put your super speed gear somewhere, it's definitely Emil Poly. But if you like to play these, they're okay. They play the same as the previous season. However, you know, the ladder is very used to them, so you might not find them as effective anymore, especially if you're not fast. But yeah, they're still decent. However, a lot of people have moved on to Emil Poly. And Peyra is just there. Peyra is a really good unit as long as they don't mitigate you with like a Fallen Cecilia and Maid Chloe. Like she's just like a staple. Like as long as there's no Maid Chloe and Fallen Cecilia, she does tons of damage. That's about it though. And then we have the S tier. Depending on the kind of game you play, these units could be pretty common. For example, Flan is very powerful in games where Harsteady is available, with and against Harsteady. Yufine is always solid for, you know, cutting teams that are very CR reliant. And also she still has 1v4 potential. And like, she's really good against units who hit you a lot, like Emo Shu. Like someone's going Emo Shu or something, you slam the Yufine and just like pray to Elbrus. Then A-Ravi is kind of decent against Ross. She's kind of decent against Velian. She's pickable, but she doesn't always win the matchup, but she's still decent. Like it helps that and she has anti-pen, which also makes her potentially a strays bait. Like I made my A-Ravi 37k HP with Sweet Miracle, and I pick her with my Aureus Knight, and she'll take the main aggro, and then like the Aureus Knights keep her alive from strays, which is nice. It wins more often than not. But A-Ravi is slightly better. Issue is though, she sucks against Celine, she sucks against Freeren, she sucks against Arunka, she sucks against Scales, she doesn't do much against Poly. She sucks against a lot of the higher tier units, but she's still okay. You know, Death Dealer Ray, pretty decent in Harsteady games, however it's very difficult to pick him, because like Yuha will automatically cleanse his sleep. But he's okay if someone's, you know, playing really tanky. Emil Shu is like the same thing. If someone's going really tanky, but also, you know, they didn't pick they didn't pick stuff like Maid Chloe and Fallen Cecilia, Emil Shu is pretty decent. And then of course we have Strays. You know, Strays, if you play Ahmed, Strays is always good. Now, if the other person, you know, is playing too slow, they don't have Ilinab or your Bandit, he'll be a decent pick, you know, to aggress on them. Like he's just a solid threat. Then we have Aram. Aram is okay into Harsteady, but she's not that good. Like she'll lose the Harsteady matchup quite often if you know if you if you're not sure how to play it. Like she's hard to use. So yeah, as a hard steady counter, she's pretty 50-50, but you can also play her in aggressive drafts to like reset your openers or something. Like that's a thing as well. Yeah, she's a decent unit, but definitely not easy to use. Then we have Hua Young. Hua Young is okay as like a anti-debuff 1v4 unit. However, she does have a lot of losing matchups. Like she can't beat Celine, she can't beat Freeren, she loses to Ross a lot, she loses to Bellion a lot. But sometimes someone will, pick too many debuffers and then Hua Young is a good pick. Which is actually not that common, honestly. We have Last Rider Crow. He's gonna be really decent against Rerun after the crown buff and like his extra shield, but also he's solid in like hard city gameplay. He's solid against Bellion. If you pick like Ilinav and LRK, they're a really good pair. Yeah, Last Rider Crow, pretty decent. Our he's realistically though, you only play him in like hard city settings. Then we have Yoha, who is decent against Rerun, decent against Scales. Very hard to pick though, because like the issue with units who counter Freerun is that they get destroyed if they get cleaved. For example, someone pre-bans Bellion, they pick Luna and Freerun. Your Yoha is useless because Luna is gonna seal the Yoha and then she doesn't reflect anymore. But in some cases though, like when someone's playing slower, Yoha is pretty good. Then we have Lionheart. Lionheart's like a cope answer to Setsuka, but if like the Setsuka player is like pretty slow, like Lionheart will usually win. I'll say it's like 60-40 in favor of Lionheart. And then we have Sage Vivian. And Sage Vivian is just a book holder for stuff like Emil Poly, honestly. Sure, she's anti-debuff, but she's pretty low tempo. So like she probably won't be able to keep up with the debuffs and like the damage that chips her focus, but she's okay. Then we have MLK-Ron. MLK-Ron is good against some cleavers who, they don't have Fallen Cecilia or Maid Chloe to mitigate them. Like he's okay against some cleavers, but he's he's okay. Has some decent counterplay though. Then we have Fern. Fern is actually pretty okay into slower people who like can't afford to like hit her because they don't do enough damage to kill her. Like over time, she can be quite the hyper carry. My only gripe is that she loses to Setsuka, which shouldn't be the case when it's like blue versus red. But she's a decent hyper carry for slower games. Then Emma Lua, she's just a debuffer. She at this point, like yeah, she's just a late pick debuffer who can probably like decently control people. However, she's definitely much weaker, especially because of like Yoha and stuff. But there are definitely some places where you can like control people to death with her. Though it's much rarer. Like I do consider moving her down here. Honestly, iffy. And then we have like Operator Cigarette. Operator Cigarette actually does a decent amount of damage even without shields. But yeah, she's a solid damage dealer, especially when if you pre-ban Ilinav, which is common. I've said this a few times, but yeah, it's very common. So yeah, that's it for like the common picks. And then we have the very niche A tier picks. They are very rarely good. But the thing about E7 is that it's good to have a lot of options so you can like be prepared for like every situation. And yeah, they're okay. Like Arya can like counter some soul burn drafts. Blue Arya is pretty good against like some single target drafts. Same thing can be said about Green Landy. Green Landy is quite the monster. if like your draft is lacking AoE, etc. No DJB. It can sometimes beat like, you know, mitigation on 3 if they don't have too many revivers. But yeah, these units, and they're not really, there's not really much to say about them, to be honest. They're very niche. And like, you know, their rules are very defined. But I'll talk about like the more notable ones. Emil Sharon, she's okay into Sigrid, but a lot of the times that Sigrid would just kill you. But she's okay into Sigrid. You know, Dilly Bet's always good against like super heavy debuffers that don't involve a seal or reset. You know, Elena can stop like defense breaks from like Bryceria, etc. Celine, sometimes Celine is good against like non-attack skills like Emil Poly, but very rarely. Like she has way too much counterplay. Well, she can be good with Secret as well, kind of, or against Secret, I mean. Bright Senya has some potential after her buff. You know, Fire Poly can cut CR based teams, I guess. Although she doesn't do much after. Emil Ball sometimes is okay. Issue is he kind of sucks against all of these. Young Senya, if you're like setting up to counter AoE with like a green unit on your third pick, like it's okay. Architect Leica, she recently got buffed, and okay, the buff really didn't do much, but the thing about Leica is that she has the capability of killing Setsuka through stuff like Ilinav. And like she has an extinct now, so she is kind of a Setsuka counter. Kind of. Which is cool. And yeah, that's only there's not much to say. Like these units, they're very rarely good. And yeah, I think that's about it. So yeah, if you're getting into RTA, I would recommend focusing on like, you know, the top 3 tiers, cause like they'll be the units you pick the most. But yeah, anyway, hopefully that was helpful. Thank you for watching. I'll see you guys next time.